Discover the incredible moment a millionaire cowboy seized love for his twins at the station. Jake Thompson stared at the steaming coffee in front of him, a hot bitterness that reflected the turmoil brewing within. He built his sprawling Texas ranch with calloused hands, a heart brimming with grit. Yet, beneath his rugged exterior, he wrestled with an emptiness that festered over years of missed birthdays and broken promises. Stripped of the joys of fatherhood, the absence of his twin daughters, Ellie and May, loomed larger than the vast fields of his empire. And now an unexpected call had shattered his morning routine. They were coming. On a train, soon to pull into a station not far from his ranch. He exhaled deeply, feeling the weight of both hope and dread paralyzing his thoughts. What if they turned him away? What if the years of neglect had stunted any chance of reconnection? Jake put his hands on the table, feeling a racing heartbeat that threatened to drown out rational thought. Torn between his responsibilities to the ranch and the gnawing need to reach out, he fought against a storm of conflicting emotions. Every ounce of ambition that fueled his rise also cast shadows over his personal life. He thought of his father's tireless dedication, of the late-night talks and warm hugs, and his heart twisted in regret for how easily he had allowed ambition to overshadow family. The highway stretched out, a long ribbon of asphalt that felt both freeing and suffocating. Each mile forward piled more pressure on his chest. Memories crashed against him like waves. He could almost hear his father's voice echoing the importance of being present for family. But in his pursuit of success, he had faded into a ghost of a father, a man whose very essence revolved around the ranch. Could he finally shift that focus? The road blurred as anguish clawed at his resolve. Did he even deserve a chance to reconnect? Then his phone rang again. Panic surged as he answered. One of the girls was ill on the train. The fear grounded in his stomach felt like a knife twisting deeper, the panic mixing with the urge to run back to the ranch and take care of business instead. No, what would that say to them? What would that say about him? The very thought of losing them again, of being too late, sent a chill down his spine. He might have built wealth, but it meant nothing if he lost what mattered most. Pulling into the gravel parking lot of the station, he felt the familiar clench of anxiety. The station was alive, trains screeched and passengers rushed by, but it all felt distant, like a wall separating him from the daughters he hardly knew anymore. Fragments of fear and determination collided. He envisioned their hearts broken, like his father's bruised devotion. Can I do this? Could he brave the gap that years of silence had widened? Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening.
YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now, let's continue. As he stepped from his truck, the weight crumpled his shoulders. Imagining the initial moment when their eyes met filled him with dread and hope, an overwhelming swirl of what-ifs and regrets. What if they turned from him? Would their youth, untouched by his failures, translate to bitterness? Or was there a shred of love buried beneath layers of resentment? This vulnerability gripped him tight, shaking the very core of who he was. He took a deep breath, his heart hammering wildly, a man desperate to bridge the chasm he created. The echoes of the train filling the station intensified the noise in his head. Clenching his fists, Jake stood at the precipice of a life-altering moment, wrestling with the shadows of his past, ready to reveal the truth of his heart, but fearing it might never be enough. All he could see ahead was uncertainty and the looming possibility of heartbreak. Time ticked on relentlessly. Would he finally confront his daughters, or would the bravery he needed crumble before him? As the train hissed to a halt, the sound cut through Jake's turbulent thoughts like a knife. A jumble of emotions swirled inside him, anticipation mingling with dread. The doors of the train opened, and a rush of people spilled out, laughter and chatter filling the air, a stark contrast to the tight grip of silence enveloping his heart. He stayed rooted to the ground, unsure of what to do next. What if they walked right past him? The very thought sent his pulse racing faster. He could already feel the chill of rejection skate across his skin. Jake clenched his fists, the calluses a stark reminder of what hard work meant. But here, at this moment, in this emotional crucible, he felt anything but strong. As he scanned the crowd, familiar faces began to emerge, but none were his daughters. With each passing second, hope waned and anxiety surged. Memories of the nights he spent working late, chasing deals that stripped him of time with them, bled into his consciousness. It was easy to see now, of course. Easier to recognize that the accolades and awards, collected like dust on his shelf, meant nothing against the ghost of fatherhood that haunted him. Then, just as despair threatened to drag him under, he spotted them. Two slender figures emerged from a swirl of luggage and bodies, bright eyes peeking out from beneath hats, mirroring the way helplessness felt like a shroud weighing him down.
The laughter spilling from their lips seemed like a distant melody he had long forgotten, yet it started to cut through layers of isolation. Jake's breath caught. How would he even approach them? Years of absence blocked the path to connection. The memories of their laughter, their smiles, would those moments be enough to bridge the gap he had helped create? His mind was a whirlwind, questions hammering against the walls of his consciousness. Could he be the father they deserved, despite everything? He took a faltering step forward, striving to gather the courage that felt like sand slipping through his fingers. As they drew closer, he could see the remnants of childhood innocence compete with traces of uncertainty etched on their faces. They looked so much like him, and yet they were these independent beings, each with their own lives that he had missed. Suddenly, he felt small, exposed. "Dad!" Ellie's voice, a shaky whisper, echoed through the chaos of the station, and it rang louder than any train call. It pierced through his facade of strength, rattling his very core. The way she hesitated, as if fearful of what would come next, pulled at his heartstrings. Jake could feel every bit of nonchalance he hoped to project crumbling away. "Ellie," he managed, his voice a gravelly mix of hope and regret. He took another cautious step, wanting desperately to reach out. Yet that same instinct, fortified by years of self-preservation, clawed at him, urging him to retreat. Here stood his chance, the moment that could either heal or deepen the chasm. In that instant, May caught sight of him. Her eyes widened with a mix of surprise and uncertainty. The skepticism on her face felt like a dagger to his heart. It stung more than he expected. It screamed of years lost, of bonds broken before they even began to form. Jake swallowed hard, fighting the swell of emotions that threatened to crash down. "Hey, girls, His words faltered like a broken engine. How did he convey everything he felt in mere syllables? He'd spent so long building walls, now they threatened to cage him as he searched for the correct words. Their expressions shifted subtly, a blend of curiosity and caution, and for the first time he faced himself in the mirror. Who was he now? The wealthy cowboy whose achievements stood tall against the emptiness he felt in his heart? Or a man desperate to reclaim a lost legacy of fatherhood? The weight of those questions pressed heavy, and he realized clarity often arrives wrapped in vulnerability. "Can we not do this here?" May finally spoke, her voice delicate yet firm, cutting through Jake's spiraling thoughts. A logical choice, perhaps. They were in a busy station, impossibly chaotic. It was a fitting metaphor for their lives, however. Could they somehow find a quieter place to discover who they now were to each other? "Let's get somewhere we can talk," Jake suggested, tentative still.
Every word felt like a pebble in his throat, pushing against emotions he had buried for far too long. But standing here, I realize it doesn't matter. I just want to be your father. A flicker of something, was it sympathy or anger, crossed May's face. Ellie remained silent, her eyes focused on the ground, as if grounding herself in the grit of reality might help her navigate this overwhelming moment. Each second that passed spiraled Jake deeper into the vortex of regret. "What do we do now?" Ellie finally asked, her voice laced with a fragile hope that struck him like lightning. "I want to start fresh," Jake said, surprising himself with the resolve that surfaced in his voice. "But I need your help. I can't just walk back into your lives and expect everything to be okay. I know I've missed so much." "Do you really think it's that simple?" May's tone struck a chord, sharp yet wavering. "We don't even know you anymore. You're a stranger." Jake flinched at the truth of her words. A stranger. He had rendered himself as such by being absent, lost in the whirlwind of ambition while his daughters grew up. His heart clenched painfully at the thought of the milestones he'd been denied. Birthdays, school plays, quiet moments of comfort. "It's painful to hear, I know that." Jake took a breath, the weight of the honesty unfurling him. "But I'm committed to figuring this out. I am prepared to earn your trust, to show you I've changed. I want to learn who you both are now." Silence enveloped them again, heavy with the burden of unspoken words. Was it even possible to rebuild? Jake's determination battled against the feeling of impending doom, the potential rejection looming large. Ellie finally lifted her head, her gaze meeting his with a mixture of curiosity and caution. "You really mean that?" "Yes," he asserted, leaning forward slightly. "Every part of me means it." "I guess we can try," May said, softening slightly, but still anchored by skepticism. The way her brow furrowed indicated the inner battle she waged between hope and self-protection. Jake nodded, grateful but aware that this was only the beginning. He had no illusions about the journey ahead, the potential for stumbles and setbacks. They were not starting from scratch, but rather from a jagged slate etched with both pain and possibility. "I'm not asking for perfection," he added earnestly. "I just want to be in your lives going forward. Let's take it one day at a time." As they sat there, the sun dipping lower and shadows lengthening, Jake felt a stirring within him. This was a new challenge, his true test of character. It wasn't about accolades or wealth anymore. It was about forging genuine connections and confronting his own failings. As the first hints of stars began to dot the twilight sky, Jake realized he had a choice ahead of him, a chance to define what kind of father he would become. The past weighed heavy, but the light of perseverance flickered in his heart.
"Let's plan something, just the three of us, together," he stated, determined to shift the narrative of his life. But beneath the surface of his excitement, a troubling question thrummed in the back of his mind. What if the shadows of his past actions proved too great to overcome? As they turned to leave, a feeling of dread crept back in, reminding him that redemption often comes hand in hand with accountability. The moment of truth was rapidly approaching. Would he be able to confront not just his daughters, but his own past mistakes? And how far would they all be willing to go to make this new beginning worth it? Over the next few days, Jake fell into a rhythm of tentative engagement. The air was charged with unspoken words as he navigated the sacred ground of rebuilding a relationship with his daughters. Each interaction felt loaded, each question a potential minefield. He wanted to establish trust, yet he was acutely aware that the mere act of trying wasn't enough. He needed to show them that he was serious about this endeavor. He found himself scrolling through old photos on his phone, searching for common ground. There were pictures of their childhood, Ellie giggling on a swing, May scowling at a broccoli floor at a dinner. Each snapshot captured moments he wished he could relive, moments erased by time and absence. They had been connections he had long taken for granted, only to realize now their irreplaceable value. One evening, after a long day of work, he decided to reach out. "How about we go to that park you both loved as kids?" he suggested over the phone, his heart racing at the anticipation of their reply. "How do we know you'll actually show up?" May responded instantly, her voice holding a weight that was both challenging and protective. "I'll be there," Jake said, a resolve hardening in his chest. "I know I've failed you before, but I want to prove that I'm different now. Let's take this one step at a time." "Fine," came the reluctant concession. "But we're serious. This isn't a game." As he prepared for the picnic, Jake experienced a mix of excitement and trepidation. Realizing he was about to step into the lives of two young women who had moved forward without him filled him with both hope and fear. Flashes of doubt crossed his mind. What if they rejected him outright? What if the past was too big a shadow to escape? Yet the sun shined brightly on the day of the picnic, his hopes buoyed by the warmth against his skin. He laid out a checkered blanket beneath the biggest oak tree in the park, its sprawling branches offering a cool sanctuary from the heat. When he spotted Ellie and May approaching, he felt a sudden surge of anxiety, his pulse quickening as they drew closer, each step heavy with significance. "Hey," he greeted them, attempting a casual smile that felt more like a grimace. Their expressions remained guarded, a palpable barrier between the three of them. May dropped the picnic basket with a thud, the contents rattling inside like his jangled nerves. Ellie followed suit without comment, her demeanor softer but still distant. "I thought we could eat first, then maybe walk around," he suggested, his voice tinged with an urge to fill the silence. As they settled onto the blanket, Jake noticed the way they exchanged glances, cautious but curious. He unpacked the food he had prepared, a simple mix of sandwiches and fruit, each bite infused with his hope for a fresh start. But every attempt to engage returned to him as a stall, as if each question was met with a dampened response. Laughter seemed like a far-off dream, when a mere shared smile felt like victory. "Why haven't you called us before?" Ellie finally ventured, her brows furrowed in curiosity, a hint of vulnerability peeking through her shield. Jake took a deep breath, his vulnerability laid bare. "I thought distancing myself would make the situation easier. I ran from the fact that I let my career come between us. I was wrong to think that I could just pick up where I left off." Their eyes searched his for a moment, but neither spoke. Instead, the wind rustled the leaves just above them, as if it too awaited their unspoken words. After a pause, May chimed in. "What if it isn't about going back to what we once had? What if it's about finding something entirely new to build?" Her suggestion sparked something within Jake. A realization shimmered on the horizon of his consciousness. This wasn't merely a reclamation of what had been lost. It was an invitation to reimagine their relationship from the ground up. "Let's do that," he replied with newfound clarity, a sense of determination flooding him. "Let's not just try to repair the past. Let's figure out what works now, in this moment. I'm ready to hear you, truly hear you. Tell me what you want." As they spoke, navigating the contours of their fractured history, Jake felt a shift within himself. The excuses he had clung to began to dissolve, revealing a clearer path ahead. But just as Jake began to entertain the possibility of renewed connection, the sudden arrival of May's phone call disrupted the moment. She glanced at her screen, her expression shifting from engaged to distant as she read the notification. "I have to take this," she said, rising abruptly and stepping away. Jake glanced at Ellie, who mirrored his concern. What could possibly be so urgent that interrupted this fragile moment of reconnection? Suddenly, all his progress trembled on a precipice. What revelation awaited? Jake inhaled deeply, preparing for what was coming next. Would this be another obstacle in his quest for redemption, or a new chapter waiting to be written? Jake sat in silence, the air thick with uncertainty, as he watched May drift further away, absorbed in her phone call.
Guia de estilo e instruções para a síntese de fala. Você é narrador, palestrante e autoritário. O tom deve ser firme e inabalável. Contexto de continuidade. A frase anterior era "Me with my problems." Her distrust stung. Time. Você está no meio de uma frase, pensamento. Mantenha o ritmo e a força vocal sem quebrar a conexão. Haja como se estivesse transmitindo uma verdade fundamental. He had then the weapon of his choices, one that had chipped away at their relationship. But he needed to earn her trust, to show her that he wasn't here for grand gestures. He was here for the small, messy moments that truly mattered. "Please," he implored, "I want to be here. Not just for the big events or special occasions. I want to help with the day-to-day. Let me in, May, just a bit." Before May could answer, Ellie interjected, sensing the tension. "Maybe that's the point," she said softly, embodying the cautious hope Jake had been waiting for. "Maybe this is a start. Just sharing the little things might help us find a common ground again." Jake felt a rush of relief combined with fear. But there was something empowering about their budding openness. The thread of connection was thin, yet beginning to weave together. It could fray, but it could also consolidate into something stronger. "Okay then," he grasped the moment, the need for clarity and trust still weighty on his chest. "What do we do next? How do we really start from here?" As he waited for their answers, Jake felt the moment's significance swell in his chest, a ripple of possibility ready to surge. The fledgling connection could shape into something remarkable. But would they have the courage to embrace this new path? Would they find the strength to transform an uncertain present into an inspiring future? The question hung heavy between them, charged with the promise of a new realization or retreat back into the past. Jake leaned into the silence, filled with urgency and anticipation, preparando para qualquer revelação aguardada next. The silence hung between them, punctuated only by the occasional rustle of leaves in the wind. Jake could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on him, akin to the tension before a storm. He keenly felt how fragile this budding connection was, like a delicate glass sculpture that might shatter at a mere breath. For the first time in a long time, he allowed himself to reflect on his choices and the path that had led him here. He closed his eyes for a second, envisioning his daughters' faces, their laughter, the nonsensical jokes they shared, the way they looked up at him with unguarded admiration. Each memory poked at the dense fog of doubt surrounding him, illuminating the core of what he wanted: to be an active part of their lives, to rebuild trust and foster growth. When May finally spoke, her voice trembled with both hesitation and conviction. "I don't know. I guess we could start with small things. Maybe dinners together. Just us." Jake's heart soared at her willingness to reach for the future despite the heavy cloud of uncertainty that shrouded them. "That sounds perfect," he replied, surprised at how light each syllable felt. "We'll keep it simple, just food and talk, no distractions." Ellie nodded, her small smile a beacon of encouragement. "We can talk about our week, maybe share what we're excited about or frustrated with."
The sincerity in her voice shone through, and Jake realized how much he had underestimated the depth of their relationship. "Exactly," he affirmed, excitement washing over him like a warm tide. "And we can make it a regular thing, starting this weekend. That'll give us some time to prepare." Mai looked at him, her expression softening, but Jake could feel the hesitance still embedded in her gaze. "But what about school? What if I'm too busy to talk?" Jake leaned forward, emboldened by her concern. "That's why I want to stay involved. If you're facing something difficult, I'm here to help. We can make space for each other. I want to know about your tricks, your dreams, your worries." Mai's lips parted as if to respond, but she hesitated, glancing away as if wrestling with what to share. Her reluctance ignited his determination. The path ahead was not going to be linear, a realization that weighed heavy on him. But that weight was balanced by the resolve he felt pouring in. He had to show them he wasn't just offering words, but was willing to engage fully, with authenticity. "Maybe we can set tiny goals," Ellie suggested, giving voice to an idea Jake couldn't help but embrace. "Like doing something new once a week together?" Jake contemplated the suggestion, picturing various activities they could dive into. Cooking, hiking, art projects. So many small adventures lay on the horizon. Yes, what about every Saturday? We meet right here and we do something different each week. It'll be our time. Their smiles at this plan ignited a spark of hope. But underlying excitement swelled with questions. Would he be able to keep up the momentum? Would they buy into this arrangement, or would it collapse under the pressure of their unresolved feelings? Yet, hovering just beneath the surface was the unease of his past mistakes, the knowledge that words now had to turn into actions, and that meant risking failure yet again. As they sat there, turning an ordinary moment into a fragile sanctuary of possibilities, Jake reckoned with one critical truth. This was not merely about rebuilding their relationship. It was a chance to transform his own identity. He needed to banish the ghosts of his decisions and step into the light of accountability and growth. Let's make this work, May. I believe we can create something special. I just need you guys to help guide me. The evening sky continued to darken around them, a stark contrast to the lightness he felt igniting within. Would he be able to navigate the complexities of their feelings, the responsibilities he has yet to meet, and the unknown challenges awaiting them? He sensed a looming confrontation with his own limitations. The choices he made moving forward would demand courage and clarity, forcing him to confront his deepest vulnerabilities.
Next weekend is just a beginning, he thought, the promise of what could be hanging tantalizingly close, yet still just out of reach. Would they be ready to take those first steps, or would the weight of their history hold them back? Jake inhaled deeply, determination inflating his lungs. The moment was ripe with possibility, and the unfolding chapters of their lives were now intertwined. However far he had to go, he was ready to embrace whatever awaited him at that station of love, loss, and renewal. Would they be willing to seize it as well? As the week trudged on, Jake found himself obsessive over their upcoming dinner. Each hour wore heavy with anticipation and self-doubt, compelling him to evaluate his choices and the intimately woven threads of his past. Every moment spent reflecting pulled him deeper into a whirlpool of emerging intentions. The conversations with May and Ellie floated vividly in his mind, sketching a map for the terrain of their lives he was eager to explore. In the quiet corners of his evenings, Jake pushed back at the gnawing doubts that whispered to him. He memorized their suggested activities, from cooking lessons to nature trails, but uncertainties danced at the edges of his excitement, a constant reminder of the unpredictability of relationships. Would they actually enjoy these experiences? Or would they serve as reminders of the void his absence had created? At work, he found himself distracted. The bottom line blurred into the backdrop as memories of laughter filled his thoughts. Even mundane meetings became a canvas upon which he painted visions of family dinners riddled with mixed emotions of concern and hope. He began to plan, meticulously creating a family event diary on his phone, an eager attempt to forge a sense of commitment to their newfound path. But lurking beneath his enthusiasm was a nagging voice questioning his ability to sustain this familial rebirth. What if the light he felt coursing through him was fleeting? Every time he saw May, her inscrutable expression and flickers of apprehension sent a pang into his abdomen.
He could sense her internal struggle, neither indifferent nor fully embracing their emerging pact. This awareness imbued him with both anxiety and urgency. Add a twist, he thought one day, pacing through his office while avoiding the incessant paperwork. He envisioned each dinner becoming a thematic adventure. One week Italian cuisine, the next a night filled with outdoor grilling. If he could make their time together feel special, perhaps it could inspire them to lower their emotional walls. He shared his ideas with May over text, revealing plans for a surprise family taco night, complete with homemade salsa. He hit send, holding his breath as his thoughts spiraled into self-criticism. What if she found it silly? But the moment passed when her effusive response chimed back at him. Excitement radiated between the digital lines, wiping his worries momentarily from the surface.
The day finally arrived, a Saturday steeped in sunlight, and it seemed the sun shone in solidarity with his hopes. The scent of herbs filled his kitchen as he chopped, stirred, and grilled, an eager chef determined to make this evening memorable. Yet behind the joy loomed a heavy question. Could he truly change? Life had often taught him that intentions might not translate into actions. As his daughters arrived, their smiles lit up the space like fireworks. Yet Jake felt a strange anxiety tightening his chest. May hesitated at the threshold, a shadow of uncertainty flickering across her face. Was she dreading the evening he envisioned, or was she simply cautious about this new version of him? "Hey, May, Ellie, come in!" he exclaimed, instinctively injecting cheerfulness into the atmosphere. With every word, he fought to compose himself, resisting the urge to reveal the tremors of doubt plaguing him. As they settled around the table, the moments proliferated, laughter interwoven with tokens of vulnerability. Jake watched as May unraveled in the warmth of the familial space, slowly tasting each dish and softening with each mouthful. Yet somewhere in that silent dinner, he could feel the fragile brink between past disappointments and hopeful tomorrows widening, a gap that desperately needed bridging. Reflecting on this fragile equilibrium, the truth crept back into focus. Change was a gradual burn, not an explosion, and it would require patience from all sides. Tonight was easy, but what of tomorrow? He was aware that sustaining the momentum of this evening would be his greatest challenge. The meal drew to a close, with heartfelt smiles and the shared warmth of conversation. Yet beneath the joy lingered trepidation. Would next week's taco night elicit the same closeness? Or would a fleeting shadow of doubt cast a chill over their connection again? Jake found himself caught at a crossroads. The road ahead held infinite possibilities, yet the shadows whispered of potential failures lurking in the corners of those possibilities. With hope tinged by uncertainty, he pondered his next move. His gaze met May's, her eyes reflecting questions yet unasked. What awaited them next? An exploration or an unraveling? Would he find the answers he sought, or would the hope begin to fray? The moment had arrived where Jake knew he had to dig deeper, confront truths not yet faced, and embrace the potential for both connection and pain. Jake took a bold breath. This was only the beginning. He had no idea what lay ahead, but he was ready to confront whatever complexities awaited him.
The days that followed the taco night were a mix of elation and anxiety for Jake. Each passing moment seemed to amplify the expectations he had unintentionally placed upon himself. Hiding behind each smile shared with May and Ellie during dinner were questions that clawed at his mind. Where would they go from here? How could he maintain this newfound connection? And what if he failed?
Jake turned inward, assessing his thoughts as they collided with reality. The warmth of the dinner lingered, yet it was swiftly accompanied by the chill of uncertainty. He began to devise a strategy, something concrete to ensure this momentum didn't dwindle. He made an ambitious list, outlining not only the meals, but the activities that could intertwine with them, a well-crafted itinerary aimed at building tradition and trust. The following Saturday, he orchestrated another dinner, this time festoons around a theme of comfort foods. Nostalgically, he remembered how he felt cherished over a bowl of mac and cheese at his mother's table as a child, and he hoped to replicate that feeling for his daughters. He programmed the playlist with that familiar family vibe, minus the disjointed harmonies of his own mistakes. But as he washed the dishes after the delightful meal, doubt inked the back of his mind again. He felt the creeping anxiety of whether he could establish a lasting rhythm in their interactions. With May's guarded demeanor still hanging over him, he found it difficult to shake the feeling that he was navigating treacherous waters. Each time she smiled, he feared that the light might flicker out the moment he stumbled. In a moment of impulsive clarity, Jake decided to take a leap. He realized that connection could not solely rely on carefully planned dinners or quirky themes. It demanded raw honesty. It was time for a conversation that might unearth deeper terrains of their relationship, a discussion that would demand courage from all sides. The next dinner was less formal. He served store-bought pizza to avoid the pressure of cooking, creating a relaxed atmosphere. As the evening progressed, however, Jake could sense the weight of words unsaid lingering between him and May. The casualness of the environment gave way to an intensity he could no longer ignore. "Hey, May, can I ask you something?" Her brow knitted in a blend of intrigue and hesitation. "Sure, what's on your mind?" "I think we've been skirting around something important. How do you feel about this path we're trying to create?" The words hung in the air, quivering with the tension between bravado and vulnerability. Silence enveloped them, punctuated only by the distant laughter of his daughters. Jake's heart raced, sensing the opportunity to embrace a level of transparency he had long denied himself. He couldn't afford to back down now. "I want this to work, but I'm scared we might be rushing things," May admitted, her voice thick with sincerity. "I want to embrace this new dynamic, but I'm still figuring out how." Jake felt an electric pulse from her admission, igniting the very hope he had feared would slip through his fingers. "Me too," he confessed earnestly. "I'm fully committed to all of this, but I need your help in navigating how we move forward, together." Guia de estilo e instruções para a síntese de fala. Início das instruções. Você é narrador, palestrante com voz potente, forte e autoritária. O tom deve ser firme e inabalável. Contexto de continuidade. A frase anterior era "Help in navigating how we move forward, together." Você está no meio de uma frase-pensamento. Mantenha o ritmo e a força vocal sem quebrar a conexão. Haja como se estivesse transmitindo uma verdade fundamental. Fim das instruções. O desafio é grave. In that moment, an unspoken understanding blossomed, a glimpse of the bridges they might build from the ashes of their past. May's guardedness softened, revealing an earnest desire to contribute, her voice lower but resolute. "Okay, let's move forward, but let's do it at our own pace." Jake nodded, a wave of relief washing over him. It was comforting to know they could create their own rhythm, free from the pressure of expectations. But beneath that comfort echoed a question. How would this evolution unfold when challenges inevitably arose? As the hours rolled on, laughter mingled with trepidation, affection slowly replacing apathy. They stepped away from rigid definitions of family and held hands with the unpredictable yet enticing future that lay ahead. Yet somewhere deep within, Jake understood this was only the beginning of their journey. Confronting the complexities of relationships was like assembling a puzzle, a slow process filled with unforeseen turns. That night, as Jake lay in bed, the stillness of the house contrasted sharply with the commotion of thoughts in his mind. He felt encouraged, yet anxious, aware that this newfound clarity had layers yet to be explored. With every layer peeled away, could they unearth hidden truths about themselves? Would their connection survive the challenges that often arose from such vulnerability? There was a stirring in both fear and hope, a space where dreams were cascaded with uncertainties. Buried deep within him, the question surfaced once more. Was he truly prepared to face whatever complexities awaited? Jake closed his eyes, wrestling with the uncertainty, and braced himself for the tides of emotion promising to come next. The moment was approaching when he would have to confront not just the potential for love, but the facets of pain and misunderstandings that could come from such a journey. Could he withstand the trials ahead, or would his resolve buckle under the weight of past disappointment? Jake awoke to the soft light of dawn filtering through his bedroom window, the quiet murmur of his thoughts gradually giving way to a clearer perspective. He sat up, heart pounding with a renewed sense of purpose. Today would be different. He would actively shape the trajectory of his relationship with May and Ellie, rather than passively waiting for things to unfold. As he rolled out of bed, the weight of his earlier doubts hung on him like a well-fitted coat. He recognized that it wasn't just about the dinners or themed activities, it was about building an emotional scaffolding that would support their burgeoning family. The idea sparked a light within him. A plan was forming, one that would require both creativity and courage. He decided to create a weekend filled with meaningful interactions, activities steeped in fun and spontaneity. With breakfast as his first objective, Jake envisioned a pancake breakfast, but with a twist. Each pancake would be shaped like different animals.
He hoped to connect with the girls through something overtly playful. It was a departure from the earnest tones of their previous conversations, but sometimes laughter was the best conduit to deeper connections. As he flipped pancakes in the kitchen, he felt the thrill of anticipation. The bubbling batter felt like a metaphor for his boiled-over intentions. Excitement mingled with the possibility of burns and spills. Each shaped pancake carried both the potential for delight and the risk of disappointment. Would his attempt to foster connection through whimsy resonate or fall flat? When May and Ellie finally emerged, the smell of syrup and sizzling pancakes filled the air. The girls exchanged glances, and Ellie's eyes lit up with laughter. "Are those pancakes a turtle?" she exclaimed.
Jake breathed a sigh of relief. Laughter erupted like confetti, scattering his anxieties. As they sat, sharing stories and feasting on their quirky breakfast, Jake felt a shift. The casual atmosphere provided an avenue for open dialogue, a stark contrast to the heaviness of their previous discussions. May's laughter blended with Ellie's, relaxing the tension in his shoulders. It was at that moment he realized that vulnerability didn't only emerge from difficult conversations. It could bloom organically, too, through joy and shared experiences. After breakfast, with a renewed sense of purpose, Jake suggested they go to a nearby park. The idea of family bonding through adventure courted the chance for deeper connections built on communal fun. They all agreed, and in that acceptance, Jake felt them crossing another barrier. As they strolled through the park, Jake watched as May engaged genuinely with Ellie, sharing moments he had always envisioned but never experienced. They laughed together, their shoulders brushing, and he felt a flutter of hope spiral within him. He found himself wanting to be more involved, to speak up and contribute to conversations, to assert himself within this newfound dynamic. However, sitting under a tree, he felt the weight of reality creep back in. Would this joy be sustainable? Was he leaping a little too quickly into fragile ground? Those questions tethered him to the present moment. He decided that later he would introduce a collaborative art project at home, hoping to channel collective creativity into something physical. Perhaps a canvas depicting what their family meant to them. It was a forward-thinking initiative, but it also posed a risk of revealing vulnerabilities they were not yet prepared to confront. As the day wore on, Jake was determined to carve out a space where everyone could express themselves without fear. But there loomed an undeniable truth. Exposing their vulnerabilities could just as likely unravel their progress as knit them closer together. The sun dipped below the horizon, casting elongated shadows over their path home.
Jake felt both exhilarated and anxious, caught between the thrill of progress and the dread of potential setbacks. What discoveries awaited him in the canvas of their relationships? Would the art project reveal hidden truths, or would it complicate their delicate bond? That night, while Bailey, the family dog, snuggled close to them on the couch, Jake contemplated how to guide the evening towards the project in a manner that felt organic. He sensed the room was filled with unarticulated emotions, and a question began to form within him. Would they be able to express their fears and aspirations without hesitation? A question flickered in his mind, a beckoning echo for what lay ahead. What would he uncover when they finally surrendered to the vulnerability of their art? Jake sat across from May and Ellie, the canvases spread out before them like blank states waiting to be filled. The evening had ushered in a comforting calm, a stark contrast to the tumult of emotions that had dominated their earlier interactions. There was something quintessentially human about being able to create together, to lay foundation stones of their familial bond as they prepared to express their truths through color and shape. "Let's just start with what family means to us," Jake suggested, trying to draw them into the moment. His heart raced as he sought to balance intentionality with light-heartedness, wanting them to enjoy this shared experience without feeling forced. Ellie picked up her brush hesitantly. "What if I don't know what to paint?"
May leaned over, whispering playfully, "Just paint a cat or a turtle. You love those." Jake chuckled, feeling warmth thread through the air. Perhaps redefining family didn't require perfection, nor did it need to happen in one sweeping statement. Perhaps it was just sharing bits of themselves, bit by bit, that would uncover what they were truly building together. With tentative strokes, they began, the first lines meeting the canvas in ways that mirrored their emotions. Ellie painted simple but bright swirls, embodying laughter and joy. May, on the other hand, was more introspective, hesitant strokes converging into something like a tree, a symbol of growth and the roots they shared, even if those roots had been buried in neglect for too long. Watching them unpack their feelings visually was awe-inspiring. In those moments, he understood that art could travel deeper than words ever could. It was tangible, visceral, and could express ideas they might not yet have the courage to vocalize. "Guys, look at how amazing this is," Jake said, waving a hand at the canvases. "I'm proud of us for doing this together. Just look at how different our pieces are. It's a reflection of who we each are." The weight of his statement lingered in the air, a guiding thread prompting deeper thought. In May's shifted glaze, Jake saw curiosity rekindling. "It's kind of beautiful," she said slowly, her eyes flitting between their paintings.
Not what I expected. That acknowledgement felt monumental. Jake leaned into this change, wanting to capture the tender progression of their relationship as it unfolded on the canvases. "What if we added more?" he suggested. "Elements that represent us as a collective unit." Ellie grinned at the idea, her growing excitement becoming infectious. "Let's do it. Maybe we can paint around each other's canvases, like joining ours together." There it was, a spark of collaboration illuminating the tracks of their desires. Jake felt an exhilarating rush of possibility course through him. He could see the pieces integrating, becoming more than just separate entities, a narrative that began to reflect the chaotic beauty of their attempts to reconnect. As they joined forces, brushing against each other, Jake was struck by a realization that enveloped him like a warm embrace. The road to genuine relationship would not only be paved with nostalgia and shared activities, but with creative explorations that offered space for both joy and vulnerability. This artistic engagement represented a foundation he had long sought to build. Slowly, he was emerging from the shadows of a father hesitant in his own skin. Eventually, as their pieces took shape, they stepped back to assess their collaborative work. The canvas portrayed glimpses of their journey, each stroke an emblem of their quirks, aspirations, and, honestly, struggles too. "Honestly, Jake," Mar remarked, "this feels closer to family than any meal we've shared." Jake smiled broadly, a sense of pride radiating within him. "Exactly. It's all about the effort. We're composing our own legacy here, one that acknowledges our challenges but still celebrates where we are now." Ellie interjected, "Can we do more next weekend? Maybe see how we can engage with each other's feelings even more openly." Her question hung in the air, pulsing with sincerity. In that moment, Jake understood the magnitude of growth they had all shared. They were embracing not only aspirations, but the tangled complexity of emotions alongside it.
The realization that they were on this journey together, willing to break down barriers, seemed like an unparalleled victory. Jake took a moment to observe his daughters, the joy transforming from mere laughter to something more profound, a bond crafting a legacy. He could feel the embers of connection ignite between them, the potential for healing, compassion, and a newfound understanding that transcended their previous struggles. As they moved toward cleanup, Jake felt lighter and resolute. He recognized this was more than just a creative endeavor. It was a reflection of their willingness to embrace transformation and rebuild. The walls he'd labored so hard to tear down were yielding, revealing the potential light that awaited. This art project wasn't merely a canvas of colors. It was the foundation for what lay ahead.